Wow. It's a white panel. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, panelists. So, revamping the traditional retail, the D2C way, that's what we're going to discuss today. And with me, we've got 5 founders. We've got Karan, Vikas, Dhiraj, Pawan, Rohit. We've got one tech enabler, Abhinav. And very interestingly, we've got someone from the government, Palak. What a perspective. So I would just go around the table for you guys to introduce yourself briefly, about probably 10 seconds each. And then I'm going to go around the panel.
So let me start. Good morning, everyone. My name is Karan Chowdhary, one of the co-founder of a health and beauty startup brand called Wow Skin Science. We predominantly sell health and beauty products, shampoos, conditioners, hair care, skin care. We started in 2014. We sell across 14 different countries, but we started our D2C roots in India.
Hi everyone, this is Pawan. I'm one of the founding members of Mensa Brands. Mensa Brands is a global house of brands where we acquire and accelerate digital-first brands, but not necessarily limited to it. We have around 18 brands across FMCG, fashion, home, across many other verticals, and we are expanding further. Very excited to be talking to all of you today, and thanks for taking out time.
Hello everyone. Hi everyone, my name is Rohit Chawla. I'm the founder and CEO of Innovist. It's a science-driven house of brands with multiple brands like Bare Anatomy, Chemist at Play, and SunScoop. We are vertically integrated, so we have our own R&D lab and we have our own manufacturing as well. Hi everyone, my name is Rohit Chawla. Sorry for doing this again. I'm the founder and CEO of Innovist. It's a science-driven house of brand where we incubate multiple brands like Bare Anatomy, it's a hair care brand, Chemist at Play, and SunScoop. We also have a JV with Nykaa, which is Nudge. It's a nutraceutical business. Happy to be here.
Happy morning, everyone. This is Vikas Nahar here. I'm the founder and CEO of Happilo. Happilo is a dry fruit snack brand coming from Bangalore itself, and again, trying to sell across multiple channels, marketplaces, own websites, and offline stores. We have been there in the industry from 7-8 years, trying to revolutionize how people consume dry fruits and how they look at snacks. And we are again vertically integrated, and we have our own manufacturing. We import a lot of stuff, process it in-house, have a massive R&D center, which creates a lot of products based on nuts.
Hi, Dhiraj from Campus Sutra. Really excited to be here. Campus Sutra started when D2C was not a word, right? So from that perspective, maybe we are a dinosaur here. But we have seen the entire journey. So from online to offline to international, multiple categories. We have seen the market evolve. We started from a very, very small setup, right? We started from a 400 square feet warehouse, which was supposedly haunted. From there, we have now one of the biggest D2C setup. We are present in 22 countries. We are the biggest, bootstrap fashion brand in the country currently.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Abhinav, Vice President at GoKwik. Just quickly introducing GoKwik, we are an e-commerce enablement company. We help D2C brands increase their GMV and solve a very particular problem known as RTO in D2C, right? I think 70% of the business in D2C happens on COD, and 30% of that gets RTO'd or returned in technical language. So we help brands improve that. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Palak, or I'm from Startup India. I'm different from all of these people. I'm the only lady on the stage. I'm not at all a D2C founder. I'm a representative of the government. And I'm also the consumer. So we'll bring a different perspective here. Thank you.
Superb. Hi, everyone. This is Rishav. I'm a managing director with Alvarez and Marcel. Alvarez and Marcel is basically a global consulting firm headquartered in New York. We've been in India for the past about 9-10 years, grown 20x from when we started. And I lead the consumer, internet, retail, and agribusiness vertical for the firm in South Asia. Okay, so banging on to the topic now. D2C, like Dhiraj rightly mentioned, right? It's been there for ages now. Probably you guys started the whole thought process and many other brands at that point in time. But that's really evolved over a period of time. People started D2C. At some point in time, platforms aided D2C. Now, what we see is that the newer avatar of D2C post-COVID has become far more nuanced, where the customer is willing to shop very differently with D2C brands, engage with the brands. So probably I'll just go around the table with the founders, starting with Karan, perhaps you. Where do you see D2C today? What is really D2C today and how it's that evolved and where do you see that headed?
I think if you have to talk about what it was today, I think it's very important to say what it was earlier. And I think pre-pandemic and even at pandemic times, I think it was pretty much the golden days. It's not that we won't get golden days in the future, but those were the easiest days to run a D2C business. Very less competition, just about getting in. Facebook, Google were at the prime. There was no iOS issues and so on, which really helped brands reach customers, which really helped innovation at pace which was never ever seen before in the FMCG industry, at least for us. After pandemic, we saw a huge wave of a lot of competition coming, a lot of people wanting to be a part of the D2C industry because it was the next best thing and people wanted to be a part of something which was really, really growing. In my opinion today, I don't believe that the customer has changed so much. I think a customer is always going to be a customer then. A customer is always going to be a customer now. A customer is always going to be pretty much seeking value, seeking products which is going to create a difference for them. But I think a customer is also looking for something which is something unique, something different, and that is what is expected from a D2C company. There's with a lot of inflection of a lot of companies coming in, I think that there's a lot of D2C companies which get lost in the crowd. And right now the expectation is to innovate a lot more, is to get a lot of different thing which catches a customer's eye in pretty much in a lot of noise. That is what's expected from us as companies. For me, the customer still remains the same. The customer is still pretty much looking for innovation. They have always done it from pretty much from the time you would see a YouTube video or a Facebook video. That gave evolution to what next. Okay, that product can help me out. Okay, this can actually solve this problem for me. So that's not changed, but definitely going above and trying to get more innovation in a crowded market is what's the change right now.
I mean, you have a house of brands.
No,
How
absolutely.
does that evolve?
That makes it a little bit more complex, I guess, but I agree with Karan to that extent, right? I think the core fundamentals and principles to that extent have not changed. I think consumers have a certain expectation out of what they pay for, whether it's a product or a service, and the associated kind of engagements that they either physically or virtually engage with the brand. But I fundamentally feel three things have changed in, let's say, last 3 to 5 years, so to say. First, I think D2C has become a little bit more channel agnostic. It is always debated with whether, we have also debated whether we are an online only aggregator in the beginning to now digital first, not digital only house of brands, etc. And we all at various points in time have kind of seen the lines blurring very, very quickly because the same consumer watches your review of your watch, of your Pebble watch on your YouTube video, checks out on a general trade store, ends up making a purchase on an Amazon or a Flipkart or likely your own website, depending on what, etc., prices, services, etc. So fundamentally what we are realizing is that firstly, product market fit in one channel doesn't mean product market fit in other channels, and hence the lines are blurring on D2C. And direct to consumer does not necessarily only mean your own site these days. It could be your EPOs, it could be social selling, etc., etc. Second thing that has changed in the last 3 to 5 years is, sorry to say, but there were a lot of brands which had product market fit with only top line growth, GMV, etc. And now I think with market expectation changing, consumers' expectations changing, and reality hitting much harder, the focus on sustainability has become much more real. And I think we all as founders, we know that I think sustainable growth and sustainable product market fit has become like the next reality. That's the second big change that has happened. And the third is, again, I would say, brands successful, and the definition of success for a D2C brand has become category agnostic now. You cannot just crack one subcategory and become, and rest laurels on that, because you have to keep cracking more and more categories, and the moment we are realizing that the customer is able to engage with the brand at an emotive level and not at a category first level is when you are able to become like a long-term brand. I think these are the fundamental shifts that have happened, which I think overall has just raised the bar of expectations, like Karan said, for all of us. And I think consumers are going to continuously ask more, and competition is going to make that a little bit more difficult for us. I think, but it's an exciting journey that we're looking forward.
Rohit, you are slicing the market even finer, right? Science, high science, even more nuanced in beauty. How do you see that journey? And how does that impact your D2C approach?
Sure. So I think I agree with some of the points here, especially what Karan made. The customer has not changed. But we also believe that customer has evolved a lot in the last few years, especially since pandemic, because a lot of marketing and product buying happened online. So there is a lot more education that has happened in terms of what is good for them, what is not. Like, the scale has changed a lot more. So people do understand a lot more, especially the guys who are buying online. What do they want? What do they don't want, right? And that's where I think to differentiate, being ahead in terms of innovation actually helps because as people are looking for innovation all the time, having own R&D where a co-founder is leading it, having own manufacturing so that we know and understand the nuance of what ingredients go in it actually helps us.
Vikas, food brands, probably one of the most toughest in D2C. How do you think that has been in terms of the consumer changing to adopt D2C food brands now?
See, honestly, if you see the last 5-7 years, as Karan was saying, there are a lot of brands which have come up. I think how I see D2C is that the entry barrier is low. If you assume 10 years before you wanted to launch an FMCG brand, you should always focus on how do you build distribution to say 1 lakh stores, like how the HULs and the PNGs of the world have built. It's very difficult for a new startup to say employ thousands of people on the fleet on street and trying to go to the Kirana stores and the mom and pop stores and try to convince them to list the products and build the product from there. So what happened with the D2C sector itself, with the likes of Jio offering free internet, people getting more aware of more friendly with Flipkart being aggressive on convincing people that buying online is safe. So a lot of things help the ecosystem. So when actually people started to launch their brands on D2C, a lot of the barriers of trying to build an offline distribution actually was negated. The launching of the brand, the entry barrier is quite low. So that has helped with the plethora of brands coming in. Now that has made, as customers again evolving, as it was discussed earlier, the evolution of customer and the acceptability of technology and the convenience what it provided ensured that a lot of brands are launching and customers actually are willing to buy on the D2C platform. And COVID has definitely been a big catalyst, trying to accelerate that growth, maybe which should have happened, say, 5 years down the line, happened maybe 3-4 years earlier. And overall, I think we are in a great space. Again, to be in India in this decade, trying to build businesses out, again, it's one more advantage what is there. The entire world looks up to India, and with 100+ crores of, sizable target market where you can, segment, dissect, and, maybe even make it sharper. But that's a massive audience. 10-20 years before, people are telling that India is there's a population explosion happening, but actually a consumer explosion happened. And so we as brands are there to cater them.
Super. Dhiraj, history's on your side. So how have you seen this evolve?
So I think first and foremost, I would define D2C a little differently, right? If you look at the universe of D2C brands as we know in India, hardly 1 or 2% are actually D2C. Right? For me, D2C is an approach. And there are 3 things that differentiates a D2C brand versus a traditional brand, right? The 3 things according to me, one is technology, right? And I have played this in my mind few times, so I'll anyway say it, right? If a traditional retailer were to come and tell me कि यार मेरे पास brand है, मेरे पास पैसा है, मेरे पास 10,000 distribution network है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? तो I'll say मेरे पास technology है, right? Technology is not something that you can just buy, that you get an Accenture or Infy or Wipro on board, and it's about the company culture, knowing how to use technology. It is inbuilt in your DNA, it is inbuilt in your system. So I think that's one clear-cut differentiation for me from a new age digital brand versus a traditional brand, right? The second is the understanding of the customer. So if you look at traditional FMCG companies, if you look at a lot of these traditional, say, Reliance, Aditya Birla, or whatever, right? These big guys. they have a certain way of gathering customer data or customer information, right? And there's usually a lag. So if you're in the fashion industry, you take a call 18 months in advance in terms of what your assortment is going to be. And उसके बाद देखते हो कि यार वो कैसा बिका, उसका data लेके करते हो. As a D2C brand, as a digital first brand, वो data आपके पास जल्दी आता है. आपको वो customer pulse पहले पता चलती है. And there's a huge power of that data if you know how to use it, if you know how to kind of decipher it. So I think that's like the second huge benefit that we have, right? And third is speed. Any traditional company, and I have worked for a few, right? I was with Walmart, I did some stint with Britannia and few of them, right? एक छोटा उनको यदि कुछ एलिमेंट चेंज करना होता है तो इट्स 18 मंथ 24 मंथ प्रोसेस, राइट? एक यदि पैकेजिंग में एक वर्ड चेंज करना होता है तो उनके लिए 24 महीने का टाइम लैग होता है. वर्ल्ड हैज चेंज्ड. If you talk to a 18, 20, 21-year-old now, the way he or she shops is very different from how our parents shopped. उनका शॉपिंग इज कि यार कुछ इंस्टाग्राम में देखा, इफ समथिंग क्लिक्स, राइट? Whether it is packaging, whether it is just the language, whether it is communication, whether it is just the cool factor, they'll go and try it out. My wife will not go and try out a lipstick or a, unless until it is a MAC or international brand. But an 18-year-old will go and try it out. So we're living in a different environment. And the speed that new age brands kind of bring to the table, traditional brands cannot. So I think that's like a huge difference. I think that's why you have so many D2C brands, so many brands coming out of India. And just to end, I know I've taken a little longer, right? But is that earlier capital used to be a moat. यदि किसी को ब्रांड बनाना था 10-15 साल पहले फैशन स्पेस में, तो आपको 1000 स्टोर खोलना पड़ेगा. 1000 स्टोर खोलना पड़ेगा तो आपको 1000-2000 करोड़ पे इन्वेस्ट करने पड़ेंगे. Now that moat is gone. Digital has democratized, distribution. So then now the playing field is completely different from what it was 10 years. And that's one of the reasons that we have so many brands and we have all of us sitting here.
Oh, great. I mean, we're all talking about evolution, about barriers, about technology, and the whole new shopper universe that we're talking about, right? Palak, how is the government thinking about creating this environment and how have they helped over a period of time?
So the government got into this business around 2016 formally. So there was an entire initiative called Startup India that you may have all heard about. And we formally sort of started doing this, that we will become enablers. So to this day, our stand is that we don't want to be telling you how you run your businesses. We are not those experts. We are not the people who will restrict you with those regulations that will throttle you into death. We are the people who want to create an environment that is great, that is conducive, where investors are comfortable, where mentors are comfortable, where founders are comfortable. So the entire game in the last 7-8 years has been that can we launch very specific initiatives that the private ecosystem is probably not naturally doing. And a simple example is I lead something called Startup India Seed Fund, which is specifically catering to small ticket grants and debt at a very early stage where you're still trying to do POC. Those avenues are still very less in the country, by the way. As a person who wants to do a business and doesn't have a lot of savings or rich relatives, it's hard to do it. So, so the government has always tried to plug in those very specific gaps that have not been filled naturally by the ecosystem and try to create something that is a little more holistic. In this particular sector, the government has done 2-3 good things which are already there or in the pipeline. ONDC, for example, we all have heard about it, though I think many people don't understand it as well. It has what they call it democratized e-commerce. It has unbundled e-commerce, which means that if a founder had a problem statement where they were solving only perhaps a product and they were not great at logistics, they could step into ONDC and solve that problem. They're also creating certain policies like the retail policy or the e-commerce policy that enables a more fair environment, a more transparent environment, not to again restrict anybody, not to restrict their growth, but more to enable it, more to create an environment where everybody feels comfortable that I have an idea, I want to do something about it. So yeah.
Super, very interesting. Now, most of you spoke about how barriers are low and hence bunch of brands came in, right? and so got the customer a bit divided. So the biggest question probably now is how do you get that customer back? Retention, right? So probably this question is more for Karan, Pawan, and Vikas. As you've seen your brands grow, how have you consistently created that aha moment for that customer to come back?
I think retention probably first starts with your product actually speaking something. I mean, if that doesn't happen and if a customer uses it for the first time and he doesn't really resonate to the product, forget retention, that's not going to happen. I think it's really important to speak to the customer a lot. When we started our journey, I think we spoke to almost every single customer who purchased on our D2C website. And that's what makes D2C so cool, because you get customer information, you give a call to the customer, you get to understand what worked for the customer and what did not work for the customer. Like, customers get very excited when they want to start using a product, or they see a product, they buy it, they wait for it. When they get it, we give them a call. And then probably through the 7 days, 14 days, 21 days or 30 days journey, you sometimes try to get that information that what's actually worked for the customer and what has not. Then you kind of start modeling around a kind of a framework for that particular product. What is the expectation from a customer? And then you start using lots of tools, lots of WhatsApp chatbots, which have recently come, which I think make a very, very big difference, to try to get that information back to you, try to get the understanding back to you, try to get the customer comfort which is expected. And then you start evolving a model which actually works and builds your retention system to hit the correct message to the customer at the correct time. I really think that's the most critical thing. It is not about just spamming left, right, center to your entire customer base and trying to get them all to purchase your product. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes. There is AI tools, there's ML tools, there's a lot of clever CRM systems which is there. It's evolved a lot. Over the last 1.5 years, I've seen some very, very phenomenal changes of sending absolutely correct information at the correct time. So it's not about sending a lot of information to the customers, but sending very, very relevant information to the customers. It is also about educating customers a lot more than trying to sell at every single go. I think that is one very, very, very big mistake what people make. Once you start gaining the trust of a customer and people start resonating that product or that problem with your brand, retention then starts becoming very, very easy. I think I still again will go back and say, yes, customers have evolved, but nothing has changed too much. Should not get too paranoid. It is still those basic things which have always been going on. The tools have changed. I just think that earlier everyone was using a lot of SMS and email. That has changed a lot to WhatsApp, with WhatsApp opening up, chatbots opening up, with AI-based bots opening up, asking and even reminders being set up in that way. So again, that's where it is. Not too many things have changed, but a lot of AI has started coming inside the system. I was there in a conference in Barcelona in the last month, and I was very, very surprised with the amount, how much AI is actually taking over. And I think it's very, very important to use a correct partner who is able to provide AI-based solutions, predictions to reach the customer with correct information at the correct time. That's all great, but it does not work if your product is no good. So I think it's very, very important to have product as one point, make sure that is as good as what it is. And then the second point is trying to provide as much information, correct information at the correct time, and probably be obsessed about your product. It really helps because customers even see through it.
I think just to take the thought forward, right, Karan, I think it will come down to, I think tech is an enabler of retention. It's not going to solve. I think oftentimes we look at tech as in, like, there was a time when we used to throw people at problems. Now we throw tech the problem saying, kar to solve, right? It doesn't get solved. I think fundamentally it's attention to detail. And attention to detail in two parts of our engagement journey with our consumers, right? There is a product dimension to it and there's a service dimension to it. And it's also linked to your last question, Rishav, right? The lines are blurring also on, are you a product provider or a service provider? And there's a saying that in long run, all of us will be in service industry because all of us will are at some level trying to usher the consumers and going to serve the consumers and trying to create delight. What we have seen is that across various socio-economic classes of the, and it's quite counterintuitive. And you would typically assume like an Apple consumer will have a dramatically higher expectations versus a, let's say a Pebble consumer, which is probably a 1/10 the price. And in this room, and with different age groups, different socio-economic groups, you show them different watches of different prices, they will give you equally critical feedback on a 4,000 rupee watch as much critical, feedback they will give you for a 40,000 rupee watch. And I think the reality is that it's eventually going to be very, very small things. It could be installation, it could be service, it could be feedback about how aesthetically, for example, today's younger generation we were talking about, I think their expectation on aesthetics, packaging, the messaging, the story is very high. And I think you cannot at some level, keep, like we were at Swiggy and at some level we used to do a lot of tech-based, AI-based retargeting at a hyper-local level depending on what cuisine you bought earlier, etc. But fundamentally, over time we realized it boiled down to quality of food, taste of food. So it eventually we do a lot of AI ML to come back to basics and come back to attention to detail. So, and I think then we went back to things like, can we do our own product trials? Can we be the consumers? Can we do blind tests, etc. And just be super critical about it. When you have a lot of data and you're not reading the real text behind it, the real emotion behind it, it's a problem. I think it will eventually always come back to that. If you're taking every small feedback very, very seriously, and I know most founders, take that feedback, product feedback very, very seriously. I think I remember one of us went back and said, your packaging is very nice, but it has sharp edges. I said, it's the packaging of the product. He said, it matters to me because I'm giving it to my friend or my little sister. So there is no end to it. I think retention is about, we all feel our consumers are expecting only a certain core functionality, but no, they are all judgmental. They are intuitively, subconsciously comparing you with some other brand. And I'll not name a brand I tried. It was also into gifting. It was also into personal care, beauty and personal care and grooming, actually. Because of the quality of packaging, I thought I'll not like the products. I'll not try. Later, I landed up with the products and I tried. They were very good. The product was good. The packaging looked cheap. And I had built my perception. So I think at various stages of unboxing to looking at the PDPs to what kind of inbound call you get, etc., people are going to judge. So I think the bar on each of those points are very high. And I will come down to attention to detail on product as well as service. And I do think that service element is a long way to go. And I think just tech implementation is not the answer. It's just how you apply. And I really like, Dhiraj's point on the application of technology uniquely built into your process. That is your IP, not the technology itself. That's the core of it.
Probably I'll come to Abhinav very quickly. How do you perceive this entire ecosystem of customers coming back, shopping with the brands? You advise on technology, you're an enabler. How does that work?
Yeah, so to get to it, I totally agree with what Karan and Pawan said, right? Eventually, it starts from the product. And then what technology does for you is basically optimize that, right? Help you get that extra delta. Right, so your product will get in, let's say, a 20% retention number. But with optimizing using technology, using AI ML tools, right, making it easier for the consumer to reach out to you. What technology does is makes it easier, makes the experience wow, right? That's what eventually technology helps to do. So I think technology is an enabler. It's the most important factor because it helps you connect more deeply to the consumer, right? And it helps you in two ways, right? I think one is, if I'm a D2C founder, I don't want to be spending a lot of time inventing technology. I don't want my team to be just going what new to be make, right? That's when enablers come in like us and say, we already have the stack. We already build the technology for you. You should just go ahead and use it, right? We should. That's what we help the D2C founders with. And the second most important point that we help is data, right? Today, how do you reach out to the right customers? Who are your customers? Where are they, where are they based out of? What are their spending habits? Where do they buy? Whether they're beauty customers, whether they're FMCG customers, right? A lot of such data is what we enable the, the founders with to help take the right decision. So I think technology is a very important enabler here.
Interesting. I mean, Vikas, Dhiraj, you both mentioned that customers are almost everywhere. And Pawan also mentioned lines are getting blurred of where the customer shops. And that brings us to probably the biggest elephant in the room. How do you become more multi-channel or omni-channel or go the traditional route, right? I would start with Vikas. How has been the journey, or what are the learnings as you've traversed across channels? Choices, models, use of technology, choice of consumer, can you really optimize? How does that work?
See, in the initial stage, you can only survive with selling on your own platform, calling it a D2C company. But I firmly believe that this is just the start for any brand building up business. In the long term, you actually have to be omnichannel. For example, we being in the dry fruit snack segment, for us, the e-commerce was the initial partner for us because marketplace gave us great growth, the multiple platforms like Amazon, Big Basket, and Flipkart. But in the longer term, the market is very saturated there. It's more metro behavior kind of. But if you want to go to the tier 2, tier 3 segment, you actually have to expand offline as well. So we realized that, during the COVID times, before COVID, actually, we are doing very well on the modern trade. But immediately when the COVID happened, a lot of things were shut down in the offline store. So that gave a great boost to build on the e-commerce side of it. But as soon as the COVID was relaxed, a lot of things were again coming back to normal. We saw a great opportunity in building the offline business per se. So today, we are available in more than 20,000 stores, right? And if you're only depending on your website, that only contributes to say on 5-10% of your own revenue. And we actually have our own stores where a customer can buy from our website and actually collect from the store, and or vice versa can buy from a circumference of 3 kilometers and get it delivered the same day, where a great experience can happen. Again, your store actually acts like a dark store for your services as well. So it is like, technology is actually blurring a lot of lines. The consumer can be on your website, can come to your own store, can go through platforms like Amazons of the world, and can also go through a Kirana mom and pop stores. For you, it's very important for any brand to be relevant, to be available when the customer wants it. So it's very important for you to be omni-channel, to build on a lot of opportunities, wherever. In fact, for travel retail, like we'll be available in most of the airlines. We sell in flight, right? And we are available in a few railways also. So wherever you get an opportunity to engage with the consumer, might be into travel retail, might be into Horeca, might be into offline, online, own stores and whatever. You should never leave an opportunity. That's what I feel. And secondly, and most important, what D2C and the own stores, the importance is that what Dhiraj was mentioning, the data what you get. When you sell on platforms like the Amazons of the world or the Big Baskets of the world, you don't get much data. You can't understand why the customer is particularly buying it and when is he coming back, what is his buying behavior, how do you actually build your own marketing campaign, what should be a brand communication be. For all those things, selling on your website is quite critical. But for scale, you should be available everywhere, and omnichannel is the way to go. And 90% of the business lies offline. India as a country, though there's a lot of noise on D2C and e-commerce and marketplaces, still that contributes, say, 10% of the overall revenue. The 90% revenue lies in the offline business. So if you see, whenever you want to go to raise funds and all, they always ask, what's the moat on building offline distribution and how do you want to scale that? So I think eventually the brands can start anywhere from their own website, marketplaces, but eventually they have to build an omnichannel strategy and build a brand which is larger than life. Products can keep changing, can evolving, but the brand communication, the brand perception, because today people want to consume brand, want to associate with a brand, aspire to become like a brand or want to show off their brand. For them, product is important, the quality has to be great, but the brand what they associate with has to be equally good. So, product, packaging, brand perception, service, communication, everything plays a key role. Building a brand is a 360-degree opportunity and a challenge as well. But I think omnichannel is the way to go, and that's what at Happilo we are trying to build.
No, super. I think Dhiraj, you and Karan, you two very different categories to go into the offline trade, right? Learnings and choices.
I in fact have a very contrarian view of this, right? While we have done offline and offline is big for us, if I have to just draw a cricket analogy, I think online and offline is like T20 and test match. right? While the game is the same. At the end of the day, you are playing cricket, right? The rules and the dynamics of the game is very, very different. So if you look at, say, the best e-commerce fashion retailer in the country, which I think is Myntra in India, right? They have struggled with offline. Similarly, if you look at a Shop a Stop or a Lifestyle, which are the gold standard of offline retail in India, they've tried a lot but have not succeeded online, right? So there's obviously something which is different, right? A Pujara can be a great test player, but in T20 he'll struggle. Similarly, you can have a Surya Kumar doing great, in T20, but will struggle in test matches. Unfortunately, especially in the last 1 year, I think what is happening, the way I see it, is कि यार online में sale नहीं बढ़ रही है, investor का pressure है, तो offline store खोल दो, right? It is like saying कि मेरा T20 में run नहीं बन रहा है, तो मैं test match में run बना लेता हूँ, वो एक तरह से international runs मेरे बनेंगे. That does not help. If you do that, there is a possibility that जो तुम्हारा T20 में place है, even that will go for a toss, right? Obviously, I'm not saying कि the online players cannot go offline. I'm sure Happilo has done a great job, right? It's like Sachin Tendulkar. If you are Sachin Tendulkar, you will do well in T20, you will do well in Test cricket, आप अच्छा करेंगे. But otherwise, for everybody else, you have to understand that the dynamics of online and offline is different. If your online is working, it is not necessary your offline will work. Your offline requires a different set of skills. You have to build that. First, you have to understand that. You have to appreciate that. Second, even in offline, there are a lot of subcategories. Offline हम बोल देते हैं, offline में general trade में पैसा लाना is सबसे difficult काम. LFS में, large format store में आपका inventory turn सबसे difficult है. आप यदि stores खोल रहे हैं, तो सही stores खोलना सबसे ज़्यादा difficult है. तो offline में भी हर subcategory, इसमें dynamics बहुत ही different है. It is not the same. Offline is not one monolithic structure कि मैंने online crack कर लिया है, तो offline भी crack कर लूँगा. Right? You need to understand that. Second, offline, again, like a test match, is a 5-day game. You can open some stores which can do really well. You can get into a Lifestyle or you can get into a Spencer's and which does well for you. But the profitability and the business of offline has to be judged over a period of 4-5 years. Because you have these phases where you does well and there are phases when it does not do well. Online, you have the capability or you have the option of kind of dialing things up and down. यार कि फेसबुक रुआस नहीं दे रहा है तो उसका स्पेंड थोड़ा कम कर दो, बट तो आपने स्टोर लगा दिया तो उसका रेंट जाएगा ही. वो अच्छा कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा है डज नॉट मैटर. सो whoever judges their offline success, based on 6-month data, I would say be careful. There are companies world over. For example, Primark, right, is one of the most successful, has taken a call कि I'll not do online. Similarly, you have the best of online companies like ASOS or you have, I don't know, Macy's, who have not kind of, done offline. Right? So it is like that. It is very different. You have to understand the dynamics and just don't follow the herd.
Dhiraj, I believe that your examples were more international, where the 70% penetration of e-commerce exists. But in India, still the revenue data says only 8% of the revenue is actually online. Remaining 92% is offline. And also it depends on every category. For me, which is selling food, it's more impulsive. You see a pack, you buy a pack. For fashion, they will come planned that my size is XL, I will try it out, I'll return it back if it doesn't work. But for food, it's impulsive. And if he's hungry, he needs a pack. If it's available, he'll buy it. He will not, if he's hungry today, he cannot buy it online and wait for 2 days to get it delivered. So it's very different for every category per se.
I agree. Plus, if you have a brand like Happilo, anyways it will sell, right? But yeah.
Very interesting. Karan?
Yeah, I think some points I agree, some points I do not agree. Sorry, but yeah, that's what it is. I think we were a brand who was thinking that, oh yes, e-commerce, oh yes, stick to e-commerce. It'll take some time, but we'll focus a lot over there. But then we also realized that after the pandemic, the offline story completely boomed out. And I think we were slightly slow to the game. So just being totally focused and saying that I'm only going to do that may not be the best of the idea. See, it differs from industries to industries. Happilo, we are pretty much FMCG. It happens immediately. People want it immediately. They don't want to wait. We are a brand. We need to understand that where the demand is, we need to be there. How we need to be there, it's a different aspect. You do not have to have EBOs or very, very large scale shops, but you also can have a distribution in place. If you don't want to overexpose yourself, there's a lot of creative ways which is also there in the system. For me, I strongly believe in an omni-channel strategy today. I was the strongest believer of and singular either e-com approach or an offline approach probably 1.5 years ago, my mind process has changed. It has to be omni-channel. You have to be online, but you also have to be offline. But the difference over here is you cannot be a Sachin Tendulkar on the first day in the offline. You may be a Sachin Tendulkar online, but when you go offline, you pretty much go back to your grassroots, small risks, take it as it goes, take data, read it, double down only when you're absolutely sure. I think that's a strategy which has worked for us.
Just a couple of additions to this, I think, since the debate has been interesting. Dhiraj has added a very interesting cricket twist to it. And I want to remind people that I don't know how many of us actually watch Test cricket today or have the patience and the time to do it. Remember that the important question to also ask, and I don't fully disagree with Dhiraj's point, it's extremely interesting, is that you have to move with the consumer. And actually, consumer is not asking this question of offline, online. We are asking as business folks. And I think we are also confusing offline retail as physical retail. I have a guy called Lokesh. I WhatsApp him at 8:15 and 8:30. He delivers, let's say, a Happilo or anything else. It's a digitally engaged consumer behavior delivered by a physical person today. It's not necessarily offline. It's our terminology. So I think we are that way. We will be very escalated to our history in terms of our commitments if we do not evolve. It definitely does not necessarily mean that's the only strategy. In my view, timing can be debated. Whether you go offline today, in which form, in GT, MT, in a pop-up store model, etc. The capex and break-even points have to be super clear. It's not a 6-month model, but there are models which break even in 3 months. There are models which break even in 6 months. Traditionally, there are more examples where break-even points have come after 1.5 years, and people have struggled and incurred losses in many of those cases. That's why some people stay away from it. I think the bigger point is also what's your right to win. If you have not figured out, don't open 30 stores because somebody else is asking you to. Do you have enough proof of concept that there is acceptance in a certain catchment, in a certain shape and form in an offline retail that you think there is product market fit? Now I can pump in money, right? I think that clarity is a very different distinction, but the important point for the larger audience, this is our terminology. Everything is digitally engaged. Today, one of our conversations with Blinkit folks were, if consumers were asked, what is that category that you don't want in 10 minutes? There is no one category where they are saying, kal de dena. 2 minutes mein de doge, to everything is good. You give me a TV in 10 minutes, I don't mind, as long as I want the TV. Right? So I think the lines are fully blurring, and I think it's our artificial barriers. I think it's in the if consumers move to T20 tomorrow, then you have to learn T20 if you want to evolve. That's only in incremental.
Very
point.
interesting. I think this really opened up the perspectives of this panel. I think our time's up. Do we have time for some questions from the audience? Sorry, probably a couple of them, perhaps.
No questions or no time?
One question. Okay. Any questions from the audience for the panel? We have one there. Can you get the mic, please?
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, morning. So in this era, if we talk about online, offline, retention is very important factor to see. And in retention, sometimes brands spend a lot, but they don't get what they have for retention. For example, if I give example of Pebble. So if we talk about 2000 TWS or 1,000 rupees smartwatch, so their brand loyalty is very difficult. For example, board comes with 500 rupees, he will never see in Pebble. So how brands see retention in that category, which is very price sensitive?
Maybe I can take that. Yes, you are right. I think categories where you see relatively more commoditization or more of a price war, brand building is that much more difficult, right? I think at least I can tell you there's no one answer to how do you build retention or better brand stickiness, so to say. I can tell you how we are thinking about it a little bit. How we are thinking about it is, are you only giving a product which is a combination of hardware, or are you also doing a lot more with software? And there is a design and quality element to it. And if you just talk about, Apple doesn't just give you great design of hardware. Actually, the design goes so deep into the UX, into your data, into your lifestyle, and what all it integrates in terms of data points. What it does with just photos is mind-blowing, with your memories, with your trends, with your portraits, being able to search with face of the image of the person, etc., is the next level of personalization that they bring. So I think the differentiation, the short answer is there, the differentiation will come from the software side. The next level of technology on Bluetooth, etc., that access to the component level technology is available for everyone and cannot be a big differentiator. It seems like you know that space. So the differentiator will come from software, it will come from the app, it will come from community building around the app, and how you are able to give more intelligence, more convenience, more delight to the consumer's user experience. Today, you don't use a smartwatch only because it gives you a time or a reminder, etc., etc. If it gives you a notification of heart rate saying your heart rate is high or it's time to walk, you've been sitting for last 4, all of this is not the watch. It's the app doing the work. It's the thought process of the founder or the product designer that has gone into it. So I think if you can really resonate with the consumer and do a great job of that, I think that will create delight. So the short answer is the differentiation answer is more software side.
Thank you so very much. Can I have a loudest round of applause for that answer, please? Before I kind of wrap this up quickly, just want to take this last question. Yes or no, this or that. Let's go with Karan. D2C or e-commerce? Just one option.
You differentiate. It's
Just-
D2C, definitely D2C.
Okay. Pawan?
I don't see as, I don't think it's an either or. I would say D2C.
Okay. Rohit?
It's a digital native.
Vikas?